Having an emergency food supply is really critical, especially in today's day and age where we're dealing with food shortages, sudden job loss, and so on, especially inflation. And so when you're getting started with a food supply, it can be really overwhelming. Now, we have this huge food supply behind us, but we have been cultivating a system to put this into place for years. And so when you're getting started, it can be really overwhelming, especially financially. And today I'm going to show you how to get started with a 30-day food supply for only $100, and everything is shelf stable. Friends, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, Victoria from amodernhomestead.com, and for the last 10 years on my website I have been teaching simple self-sufficiency skills so that no matter where you live, whether you're in a high-rise apartment in New York or 100 acres in Texas, you can create food and financial security for your family. And today we're going to be talking about one of the easiest ways to get started with both of those things. So food and financial security is with a food supply, an emergency food supply. And so, you know, if you've been on my channel before, you know that we have about a 2-year supply of food in our pantry and in our freezers, but that was not always the case. We realized that we really needed to have a little bit more food on hand, and so we got started with a food supply. We started with a 30-day food supply and went from there. Now, if you're new to food storage or having an emergency food supply, it can seem really overwhelming, like I mentioned earlier. Because what do you buy? How much do you buy? I was reading all of these websites recently that talked about having, 40 pounds of this and 40 pounds of that and 20 pounds of this and all of these very expensive quantities to have on hand for a 30-day food supply, and really that is absolutely not necessary. What you see right here, I think there's a couple of bags here that you may not be able to see, but what you see right here is a 30-day food supply for one person, and I was able to purchase all of this for less than $100. It's all organic. We've got einkorn flour and we've got einkorn pasta, and everything is organic, specialty, for the allergies that we have in our families. And we were able to buy it for less than $100 as the national average. It was actually a lot less in our area because Texas has a lot lower cost of living than other places. But what I did was I went onto a national average. I think it was a government website that had the national average for things like peanut butter or rice or something like that, and I kind of used those numbers. Or I went on to places where anybody could access the food, such as Amazon, Thrive Market, even as your standard. That's not available in all locations in the United States, but a lot of locations, and I used those numbers as well. So this food supply for one person for 30 days is about $100 or less. And if you don't eat organic food, if you eat conventional food, then it will be a lot less because you won't have to pay for the organic certification. And then also if you don't eat einkorn flour, that's going to be a lot less expensive, and so on. But even if you do, this is less than $100 to get started, and that is pretty dang reasonable. So I'm excited about that. If you have a family of 4 and you just want to get started, then you could spend $100 to have a 1-week food supply, and then the next month add another $100 to it, and so forth. So this is a great way to get started. We're going to talk about the foods that I chose and why, and how to use them. So first of all, I chose foods that most people enjoy. I didn't want to have any Spam or pickled asparagus that some people might like and other people might not. So it's pretty customizable, and everything is an ingredient. So we don't have canned soup, we don't have frozen meals or anything like that. So these are ingredients. There's rice, there's beans, there's canned vegetables. You can choose the ones that your family likes. We have flour, we have peanut butter, we have jelly, pasta sauce, that kind of stuff. So these are things that you can choose the versions of that your family likes. So the other thing is that all of these foods are shelf stable with the exception of the frozen broccoli and vegetables and the cheese. Everything else is shelf stable, and of course you can make those things shelf stable as well. You can dehydrate the frozen vegetables, or you can buy canned vegetables instead. One of the recipes that I have on the list is a broccoli cheddar soup, and so if you wanted to have that as one of the items, then you could dehydrate the broccoli if you wanted to, and you could get powdered cheese instead, or you could dip this in wax and it would be fine. So you can store waxed cheese for up to a year and just take the wax off when you're ready, and it's good to go. So other than that, everything is shelf stable and everything on the list can be made over a campfire. Now, I want to make a little note here because I think a lot of people think the idea of having a food supply is in the event of societal collapse, and that's not it at all. And so I got a lot of comments about that on my pantry video, about the fact that, you know, I was a crazy prepper and the world wasn't ever going to come to an end. And I actually agree with that. I don't necessarily prep. I don't even consider myself a prepper, but I don't actually have a food supply in the event of societal collapse or an apocalypse or anything like that. So what we do is we have food supply either because we have to buy in bulk because of the availability of the supply. If it's only available in a 50-pound bag, then I have to buy a 50-pound bag. Or because it typically sells out quickly, and so I buy a larger quantity to be able to ensure a supply. Or because it's cheaper in a larger quantity, or because we grew it ourselves and I have, you know, 1,500 pounds of green beans and I can them and they're in my pantry. So it's more out of just the way that we purchase food, not necessarily because we're prepping against, like I said, societal collapse. We have had extended periods of time with financial hardship, and I know a lot of people said, you know, why don't you just put that money into a savings account to have money to buy food? Well, you know, inflation steals a lot of that money from your savings account, but the food in your pantry is the same price no matter what because you've already paid for it. And that also allows me to buy things on sale and save money. So if I buy a bunch of organics in January, my store, a bunch of stuff goes on sale in January, all the organics. And so I buy in bulk in January to save 20% on that food. But if I just had the money in savings, it would cost me 20% more to buy that in March or November or whenever we had a financial hardship or a job loss. So I like to have the food on hand because you never know what's going to happen. We've also experienced several natural disasters that had us trapped in our home for, you know, 2 or 3 weeks at a time, where the roads were impassable. We couldn't get to a store, and so we had food on hand. We suffered not at all when it came to food because we had everything that we could need on hand. So getting back to the matter at hand, we have beans, we have rice, we have canned vegetables, pasta sauce, we have spices, we have frozen vegetables, we have broth, just lots of stuff to be able to make decent food, real food, whole food that is delicious without power and without any additional ingredients. So I also have this meal plan that goes along with all of these supplies, and you can get this. I'm going to put this link below where you can go and get this along with the shopping list, whether you're buying for 1, 2, or 4 people. So you can just take this to the store and grab everything, or get it in batches depending on how you want to do it. Along with these items, there are a couple of additional items that I would recommend getting, and they're also on the list under optional, but they make a really bad situation more manageable. So if you have some sugar, some hard candy, some chocolate of your choosing. I like to just have chocolate chips because you can sprinkle them in things or just enjoy them by themselves. Some powdered milk and some powdered butter. That also does help add to the richness of things, and you can enjoy the food that you have a lot longer. Now, one note about this emergency food supply, it's a 30-day food supply, but I would not multiply that by 12 and have this be a year food supply. There's no meat, there's a lot of beans, lots of protein, you're fine, but it's not something that you necessarily want to just eat all the time. So this is a good 30-day supply, but then you really want to start looking at additional options for how to build up a long-term food supply after this first foray. So this is really just to get you started, and then you can go on and expand from there with, you know, more things, especially if you have a freeze dryer or a dehydrator. A freeze dryer, especially if you're going to do like freeze-dried meats. You can can meat also. You can start canning your own soups, stews, all sorts of stuff. Bone broth, even just straight meat. Like you can just do canned chicken breasts or canned roast and pull that out, heat it up even over a fire with some vegetables and a loaf of bread, and you're going to be eating really, really well, and you're going to enjoy that. So there's a lot of things that you can do to add to this over time, but this is a great way to get started to make sure that you have food in the pantry in case anything that might happen. So how are you supposed to store your food once you get it, right? You don't want to just hide this away somewhere. You don't want to just come back from the grocery store with all your bags of groceries and shove it in a box under your bed. I know people who do that, and it's just really, really not recommended for a lot of reasons. I get comments all the time via email or on my other videos saying, I have a food supply that I bought 10 years ago and it's just sitting under my bed and that's where it's going to stay. And I've heard a couple of the cans pop and I've cleaned them up, but other than that, I'm not going to touch it. And that's really pretty foolish. You're wasting money in that situation. You don't have a solid food plan then because you don't know that your food supply is stable. You don't know that it's going to be there when you need it. And so what I like to do is make sure that you store everything in a cool, dry place, and any grains that are anything that's not in a sealed can needs to be put into an airtight container. So like a sealed Mylar bag, not a Ziploc bag, but a sealed Mylar bag that is completely airtight and thicker for rodent protection. I like to keep my beans in something like this, so you could put your flour and rice in something like this too. It's just a flip top, sealed mason jar, glass jar. I'll put a link to that in the description below if you want to grab some of those. And so that is really going to help you keep these for more of a long-term storage situation. Keep it in a cool, dry place just like you would for any food. The pantry would be fine, under your bed is fine, but you don't want to leave it there forever. You don't want to go 5 years without checking on your food supply. What I like to recommend is that once a year you take your food supply out and you use it for a month. And then you use your food money for that month to replace your food supply. This does two things. One, it rotates your food supply, and two, it lets you test your food supply to see if you need to tweak anything. You might find that you just really don't feel full on Mexican rice or whatever it is. And so you need to tweak your meal plan a little bit. And so that's a really great opportunity to do that. Just once a year, take your food supply out, use the menu, where you go? Use your menu, make everything as planned, test it, make sure you don't need extra of something, make sure that it really was enough for your food. There's a lot of food on this plan, but depending on how much you're used to eating or the size of person that you are or the appetite that you have in general, regardless of your size, you might need more food on the plan. And that's fine. This is a great opportunity to test it. So one month a year, take all your food supply out, make everything, use the money that you would have spent on food that month to replace your food supply with any tweaks that you may want to do. Easy, 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 great way to rotate it, great way to tweak it, and to make sure that you really have a food supply that is going to work for your family. So the last point that I wanted to make is that this is not exhaustive to what you will need in that time period, a 30-day time period for an emergency situation. This is just a food supply. Okay, so you will also need water, medications, toiletries, pet food. If you have animals, like if you are homesteading and you have chickens, you also need to make sure that you have some contingency plan for them. The chickens are pretty easy because you can just let them free range depending on how much property you have, but you do need to have a plan in place. So make sure that you're thinking all the way through those things: feminine products, diapers, wipes, like I said, medication. You might want to have coffee on hand, tea, anything like that. So there's a little bit more than just your actual meals that go into surviving a true 30-day emergency situation. For example, if you were snowed in and you couldn't go anywhere, or if we have hurricanes here all the time, which result in floods, and our roads are impassable for weeks at a time as a result. So if you legitimately can't go anywhere, what do you need? Contact solution, toilet paper, all of those things. So be sure that you think a little bit more outside the box than just your food supply, so that you can have a really good emergency setup for whatever might happen. And again, I'm not talking about societal collapse. Don't come at me for that. But we use this all the time. We use our food supply all the time. Our food supply is not for show. We literally shop out of it every single day like a grocery store, and we replenish it either with the things that we grow or we buy in bulk to save money. So this is a really easy way to get started. No matter where you live, you can do this today. You can get started with this today. Be sure to check out the links below and have a lot of good, useful information for other things that you might need to make this happen. If you're interested in saving just a ton of money on your food supply without a garden and without coupons, check out my Food Budget Masterclass. I'm going to link it below, and there's even a coupon for saving, I think it's 43% off of the full price. So definitely grab that below while it's on sale, because that won't last forever. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you enjoyed this. Please share this with your friends, like and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It really helps us reach more people, and we are so appreciative that we have really enjoyed being able to provide this information for the last decade on our website. We're thrilled to be here on YouTube. We're relatively new to YouTube, but we're really enjoying the process. So thank you for being here with us, and we'll see you next time.